Pranams to the mother and Sri Aurobindo. On behalf of Sri Aurobindo Society, Chennai, I welcome all of you to this Satsang on this auspicious day of the Mother's Mahashamadhi. And I especially welcome our speaker, Sri Narad ji, who has kindly consented to participate and give a talk on the Mother's eternal presence, despite his very busy schedule. And Sri Narad ji needs no introduction to us. He is doing a very yeoman service of bringing YouTube many of the recordings of the sadhaks, of Aurovilians, Savitri recordings, Life Divine recordings, and the list is endless. And when he was 23 years old, in the year 1961, he came to the ashram and he had the darshan of the mother. And mother gave him the adesh to bring down the divine music from above. Also, she gave him the responsibility of establishing the Matrimonial Gardens. And of course, our own dear service tree. He is the author of many books, and we are very fortunate to have him with us. I hand over this space to Sri Narad ji. Please, once again, on behalf of all those assembled here, I welcome you to this gathering, and please take over this meeting. Thank you very much.
So namaste all. It's a great joy for me to meet all of you for the first time on this special day. Of course, I was here when Mother left her physical body. And I walked around the queue again and again and again. Somehow we could not go enough times to see Mother. In 1 week from today, it will mark 60 years since I first saw Mother on the Darshan day of the 24th. Very shortly after that, within a few days, she invited me to come. In those days, you were alone with Mother completely. There was no Champakla, no one else, just Mother in her chair and yourself. And I went into her and I knelt down and I put my head on her feet. And it was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. Mother then asked me the following question: would you like to talk or would you like to meditate? I was only 23 years old and I did not know much about meditation. But I said to Mother, I would like to meditate, Mother. And then the most extraordinary thing happened. I felt the fire in my chest, and I saw the flames bursting out, and they were rising higher and higher and higher until they finally reached my head, and then they went out of my head. And all the while, my whole being was burning up, but there was no heat. There was just the flames. And at the end of that, my whole being was so shaken that I fell at Mother's feet, and I must have wept for 10 minutes or more. After that, I want to say something, first of all, that when I entered Mother's room, there were no doors and no walls. There were absolutely no walls in that room. It was the most spacious room. You could not imagine it. And not only that, but but it took quite a while to get to her feet. And now when I go there, I see that it's only 1 or 2 steps to get to Mother's chair. So the first thing Mother asked me was, is the music with you now? And I said, yes, Mother, it is always with me. And Mother said, not always. And she took it away so that she could work on other aspects. She just took it away for a while. Then she began to talk to me about the Western music composers. And she spoke about Chopin, and she said, his music is the most heard on the subtle planes. And then she said, but I don't know why. Then she talked to me about other composers. And then at one moment, she became very quiet. And then she said in her powerful voice, you must bring down a new music. Oh, I had been studying for the Metropolitan Opera in New York City, and I was already singing professionally in quite a few places in New York. And I was singing in 6 or 7 different languages. So I said, Mother, I don't know how to combine words and music. And Mother said to me, again in that powerful voice of hers, no, you must go far above words and bring down the pure music. Well, 18 years have passed now since I received another Adesh from the Lord, that the music would come down through a collective body, a sacred body that would produce a collective harmony. And that's when the word Om came into my consciousness. And from that moment on, I have called it the Ohm Choir. Now, the Ohm Choir is spreading all over the world. There's one in Germany, there's one in Italy, there's one in Australia, and they keep growing. So it's a very important aspect of my life. But after that, what happened was so powerful that I must tell you about it. my wife and I were driving down a mountainside in a blizzard, and the road was like ice, like glass. And two ladies had stalled their car perpendicular to traffic, and there was no way that I could get around them. And my wife went through the windshield, and she was so badly damaged that there were wounds all over her face. So we were taken to the hospital, and she was treated. And I called Mother and asked Mother to save her. And at that moment, Kailas Javeri was with us, and she said, "Mother is standing at the foot of your bed." Immediately there came into my consciousness, go to the market and get vitamin E capsules, break them open, and put them on all her scars. And I did this, and very shortly after that, Mother wrote, "There will be no scars." And there were never any scars. Mother took it all away. Well, we received $3,000 in medical expenses, which today would be like 3 million. But I wrote to Mother and I said, "Mother, I would like to send this money to you because you saved our lives." And Mother wrote back to me, "Why don't you use the money to come for the inauguration of Oroville?" Can you believe each ticket was $1,500? We arrived, and Mother saw us on my wife's birthday, December 18th. And she looked at my wife first, and she said these words that I shall never forget in lives to come. She said, "This is not the first time we have met. You have been with me many, many times." And then she turned to me and she said, You wouldn't like to come to Oroville in a few years? I feel you can do something there." Well, I said, "Mother, whatever is your will." And you know, I went back to the US, and Udar writes to me, and he says, "Mother wants you to prepare to come and build the gardens of the Matrimonial." Well, I wrote back and I said, "Does Mother want me to do physical work or go to college?" And he writes back, "Mother says both." So I had to work during the day and go to college at night. But it was not to be 3 years, because in 9 months, Mother writes, sends me a telegram that says, "A bientôt," in French, "see you soon." And when I returned to the ashram, I think this is some of the most extraordinary words Mother has ever spoken to me about the Matrimonial Gardens, which she says are as important as the Matrimonial itself. And this is what she said, and I remember it exactly word for word. "It must be a thing of great beauty, of such a beauty that when men enter, they will say, "Ah, this is it." And they will experience physically and concretely the significance of each garden. In the garden of youth, they will know youth. In the garden of bliss, they will know bliss. And then Mother began to raise her hand in a spiral. And she said to me, one has to know how to move from consciousness to consciousness. These words today just ring in my ear as I'm back working in the gardens and aspiring for this collective harmony to be realized in Oroville. Now I'm going to go back a bit because we are talking of the Eternal Mother. And I want to go back when it was 1961 and 1962. You know, Mother at that time, I saw her the last time she came to the playground. And I was with my friend, Dmitri von Morenschild. And the extraordinary thing he tells me is that as Mother was leaving, she had only eyes on you. And she left looking at me and looking at me. And that divine blessing has stayed with me all my life. Today, I can tell you that she is with me. But I can also tell you something that Nolini told me. It was my birthday in 1979, and we brought him a tray of 100 different plumeria flowers. Mother named them psychological perfection. Now, he was very gentle with me always, and I'll tell you more about my experiences with him because they were directly given by Mother. He said, "Come on in and sit down. All the seats are equal," when there were only 2 seats. And so we sat down, and he told me, "I have read your letter." And it was a letter that was single-spaced, 2 pages, about all the problems of Oroville. And he said, "It need not be like that. She is trying 1,000 different ways." And then the greatest words I have heard since Mother. He said, first pointing to my wife, "Your body." And then pointing to me, he said, "And your body." And then pointing to himself, he said, "And my body." We think they are different bodies. They are not. They are all her body. She has put a part of herself into each of us. So back to 1962, when I'm writing to Mother, I ask her, I tell her that you have turned my life upside down. Should I go back to America and continue studying my voice to go into the opera? Or should I study choral conducting and build a choir? So Mother writes back, one or the other, because the most important thing is not so much what you choose, but the spirit in which you will do it. And this is true of all of us, of course. But at the very end, she writes to me, I still have these letters, keep living in you the spirit of consecration, and all will be all right. You know, Mother has said a lot about consecration. And when she's talking to the little children one day, she said, we are like a little pond of water that dries up in the sun. And the divine force is a river that never stops flowing. Consecration connects the river to the little pond so it will never dry up. It's a very beautiful statement, very beautiful. It's remained with me for so long. You could ask Mother anything and she would tell you, give you the answer. One time I wrote to her and I said, Mother, I love this girl. Should I get married? And Mother writes back, no doubt and no hesitation, you must marry. So powerful, so positive. One time I was with Shamsundar, who was then looking after the affairs of Oroville for the mother. And I took Mother some flowers, and I was telling her about these flowers, and she was so interested. Well, at the end of this time, Shamsundar says to me, put your head in Mother's lap. And I did. And she put her hand on my head. And I cannot tell you what that has meant to me all my life. Every time I went to Mother, and I went to her many times, I would only bow down and put my head on her feet. But this time was an extraordinary experience. I met Mother many times on the subtle planes, where she is in charge of the entire creation. And one day, I am with her on the edge of the world. And Mother is showing me with her hand all these galaxies, thousands of galaxies, over which she is in charge. And she says to me very clearly, I have shown you the multiplicity in order that you may realize the harmony. If you would ask me, is my feeling about Mother, my experience with Mother, any different now than when she was in her physical body? I would answer you, yes, there is a difference. I now feel that she is much more universal. She is over everything now, looking over every detail. At the same time, she is continuing to form her new body, the supramental body. For me, I know that all of us one day are going to be supramentalized. It does not matter how many times we have to have this cycle of birth and death. We will be there. Why do I say this? Because we have answered the call. And Sri Aurobindo tells us, if you have answered the call, there is no way that anything can stop you from this realization. Now, Mother has guided me in so many ways in my life. And I think that, honestly, I have to say, there are two words that define my life, and they are gratitude and humility. There is a wild shrub that grows in Oroville, and Mother has named that shrub Humility Before the Divine in the Physical Nature. It is very dear to me, very, very dear. Another time I'm with Mother, and she is showing me different things, and then she says, in a few days, your head is going to fall off. Don't be concerned about it. Just let it happen. And then this word, Muladhara, 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 keeps repeating in my consciousness. And I knew that she was doing something, but, you know, I couldn't tell exactly what. The experiences I've had with Mother's disciples, Aurobindo Basu and Nolini Kantagupta, are the experiences that have defined my life. For example, Aurobindo Basu would constantly meet me at night when I was asleep, in deep sleep, and teach me things month after month after month. But he would never tell me anything when I would ask him. So one day he brings my father, my mother, my sister and brothers to the parapet in Pondicherry on the beach road. And he's telling me all these things about why I took that birth in these parents, what I was having to learn from it. It's just amazing how much he told this young boy of 23, 24 years. And then Nolini would come to me night after night after night, teaching me things. But I cannot tell you in words what they taught me. I can only tell you that it was of such a high quality of experience that it lives with me and in me today. This necessity of Mother to leave her body. She had talked to Dr. Bisht, and she said, "Can I live to 100?" And Dr. Bisht said, "No, Mother, your body is too weak, and it will not make it to 100. So Mother chose this moment to leave on November 17th, 1973. And as she was leaving, she was still preparing the new body. We will see that new body. We will experience that new body. Our children and their children will experience the new body. In human years, it may seem a bit far off, a few hundred years, but it's an instant to the divine grace. And this divine grace is something that I would like to speak to you about briefly. For example, Sri Aurobindo, in one of my most difficult moments, when my wife passed away of ovarian cancer. And I must admit, I was in deep grief. Sri Aurobindo poured poetry down through me. He poured it through me constantly. And even today, I'm writing poetry, and I don't take any credit for it. It is all His grace. I will take credit for the mistakes and receptivity. Now, Mother gave me 31 years of bliss with my wife, and we worked together in Oroville for many years. And when my wife left, she left on the eve of her birthday. And Huta told me that she would take birth again immediately. If you have some questions, I'll be happy to answer anything. There's so much more that I could share with you. Mother put me in charge once of the handmade paper unit in the ashram. And at that time in the world, there were only two companies that were making handmade paper, one in Italy and one in England. And the one in England was called Watman Papers. And I met the director of this company in New York City, and he said, "This is excellent paper." He said, "I've never seen better. Why don't you send it out to watercolor artists and get their advice?" Well, I did. I contacted the greatest watercolor artists, and everyone gave rave reviews. Now, I could have made millions of dollars for Mother. Anyway, this gentleman told me I will order one ream, which is 500 big sheets. And so he put in the order, and the ashram sent the shipment, and they did not pack it properly, and it was damaged completely by seawater. Well, I went to this gentleman, I apologized profusely, and he said, "All right, I'll order one more ream." And when that ream arrived, the paper was full of black spots. And he said, "This is useless." So I wrote to Mother, and Mother said, "If they cannot meet the standards, you will have to drop it." It was not a very happy moment in my life. So one day I'm in Long Island, New York, and I meet this man. We think by chance, nothing is by chance. And he is making handmade paper in his basement. And it's perfect. Very, very beautiful. So he says to me, "If you will pay my passage from New York to Pondicherry and return, I will teach your people how to make perfect handmade paper." So I wrote to Mother immediately, and this is Mother's reply. She writes, and I still have that beautiful note, "This is all a dream in the air and cannot be realized." See how Mother could see things. She saw, of course, past, present, and future. She called it Drishti. She was she saw it in me. At the end of my interview with her that time in 1961, she said to me, "You have just begun," meaning the integral yoga. And she said, "The potentialities are very great. But I tell you, I have not lived up to those potentialities. I have so much more progress to make. But they are with me. Mother and Sri Aurobindo are with me every day, every moment. And they will never leave me, as they will never leave any of us. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to share a few moments of my life with Mother. And today, her guidance is so powerful that one can feel in the very air of Oroville her presence. Do you know that Mother named a flower Miracle? And then she gave that flower a second name and called it Air of Oroville. So actually, Oroville's air, is a miracle. When Sri Aurobindo, when Nalini was leaving, he said just a few words: "Love the mother." And I leave you with those words today from my heart. 8 years ago, I received my last Adesh. And the Lord said to me, "Love all, no exceptions." That is my work on earth today. To do the Ohm Choirs every Tuesday, to work every day in the Matrimonial Gardens, to continue writing poetry as long as it pours down, to be grateful and humble for all they have given me and for all the disciples and devotees who have met me and poured such love on me also. Namaste.
Any questions? You can. Would you like to? Would anybody like to put any questions to Naradji?
Sir, good evening, sir. I am Kailvili and I am following Mother for past 20 years. And how do we keep Mother in our daily life and every hour we keep remembering her? Is there any kind of path we have to follow for remembering her always?
I can only tell you what my way is, and that is Namajapa.
Okay.
Repeating constantly her name. When I wake in the morning, I repeat her name many times. And then I have about 75 to 100 people that I pray for every day. And I take her name and I pray for each of them. Then at lunchtime, I take her name. And if I'm with others, we will pray together. In the evening, dinner, I take her name. Before bed, I take her name. And then as often as possible, I take her name. And that seems to me the way that we can keep her most closely in our heart. If there are any other
Good evening.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a
Yes.
lot, sir, for sharing your experience. It was really awesome.
Deepti, please. Deepti,
This
please.
is Thank you. Dipti from Kenya, we got the timing wrong. And so I wonder if you're able to send a recorded version of today's Zoom to us individually or through the Nairobi Center through Ms. Sulochna. That's my question.
Sir, can you?
Today's session is recorded by us, and
Right.
our YouTube is it is uploaded in the YouTube. Saturday Satsang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Namaste. I am Neela from Hyderabad. So great to listen to your voice, and it's really a marvelous blessing for us to hear. And I feel that it is the mother speaking through you. So it's really great. Thank you so much for your humble time and sharing your experiences with us. Thank you.
Thank you. And you know that I have a website. It's
Yes.
called motherandshriaurobindo.in.
Yeah.
And I have a YouTube site, Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and a second YouTube site, Richard Eggenberger, which is my legal name.
Yes, sir. I keep seeing all the websites, all the postings of yours.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
We have many more to post. We're way behind.
Right.
We are 2,000 videos behind.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's so marvelous. Thank you.
Hello,
yes.
I am Alpana Mukherjee. I am in Pondicherry. I am grateful to you to hear
Thank you.
your lecture. Thank you very much. Most welcome. Very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Namaste. Well, I think that
Hello.
should be it for tonight. Yes.
Narad,
Yes.
I want to ask you how the mother give you the name. Could you please share us that?
Oh, that's a very good question. Well, it was my birthday in 1972. And we knew that Mother was working on the transformation of the body. And I did not want to take her time. So I went into her very quickly, knelt down, put my head on her feet, and she gave me this huge bon fete, and she gave me my card. So I took my card, and I was going to get up to leave. And Mother said, "Look at your card." Oh my goodness, I never heard her say anything like that. And so I had to open my card in front of Mother, and there was my old name, and there was my new name. And at that point, I broke into tears, and I must have cried for 5 minutes on her feet. What can I say? Because it is the greatest blessing I could have, and at the same time, the greatest challenge.
What is the challenge?
To become him truly.
Thank you. Thank you.
He is the divine messenger and the great singer of the gods. Mother says he comes from supermind down to earth and back again. Now, Sri Aurobindo says, I don't know much about Narad, but then he writes 2 cantos in Savitri about Narad. So he says Mother knows more about him, and then he defers to Mother. Well, thank
Sir.
you all. Yes.
Sir, would you like to share many more experiences with mother? It is so listening.
I could do that.
Blessings to us to hear your experience with mother.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I will. I will tell you that if you go to our YouTube channel, there are 12 different recordings of my experiences with Sri Aurobindo and Mother. And I've had 3 of the most powerful experiences with Sri Aurobindo, and the last one occurred on 9/9/99. That time there was no speech. Sri Aurobindo was in his subtle mansion, in subtle space, in these subtle worlds, and they are so beautiful. The floors are like moonstone. They glow. They are so perfect. And well, here's what happened. He motions me to him, and I approach him, and I can hardly do this without weeping. He allows me to massage his feet. And I asked Aurobindo Basu, what can this mean? And Basu said to me, it means that you have surrendered to Sri Aurobindo and Mother, but now you have to make the surrender more complete. And that's my work every day and every moment. Thank you for so many beautiful comments. I'm deeply moved. So I'll say namaste. It's been about almost an hour.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Naradji. Thank you. You have been very kind enough to share your experiences, which are the real blessings to us, and on this very momentous day. Thank you very much. In fact, all of us were transported to the Mother's consciousness during the last 1 hour. Thank you very much. We'll end today's session with a prayer music.
Thank you, sir. And namaste.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Aravindaya. Bhagavate Sri Aravindaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Aravindaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Aravindaya. Thank you.